Welcome to Chautauqua People. I'm John V. Our guest today is Robert Wilson Black, the newly appointed Director of Religion at Chautauqua Institution. He comes to the institution following decades of leadership at the intersection of faith, higher education, public discourse, and social change. He's a religion scholar, a public speaker, administrator, and was a convener and served as Sojourner's longtime CEO. He has been president and CEO of the Faith and Politics Institute and was co-founder and founding board member, founding chair of the National Museum of American Religion. Rob brings significant experience in university governance. He's a trustee of the University of Lynchburg, where he chairs the endowment committee and served on their presidential search committee. He did undergraduate work at the University of Virginia, was awarded both a master's and doctorate by the University of Chicago. Robert, how did you make your way to Chautauqua?
Well, in the 1990s, I was hearing from Martin Marty, who became my advisor at the University of Chicago, and he'd spoken here in '83 and several times after. So when Martin Marty tells you got to check out Chicago, and then I had another board member I knew, Dick Bechtold, number 17 on the institution's campus, and he told me about it. So when you combine all that together, they say you got to get there. My wife was born in Buffalo, and her parents grew up in Wyoming area, and so there was no way we were not going to make it to Chautauqua eventually. And so we've been coming for a quarter century. So
did she say, I got to take you down there, or were you invited, or what happened?
Well, we're just invited casually. I love free Sundays, very important. When you don't have as much money back in the day. Mm-hmm. So we came up here, and then eventually you'd come to see different folks, and then finally Joan Brown Campbell invited me in 2012 as a religion scholar to help Chautauqua figure out how to move from the 3 Abrahamic faiths focus to a truly multi-faith. Mm-hmm. So it's been a great run.
What have been some of your key areas of scholarship since getting established here?
So the focus that I've had really, obviously, originally was the understanding of university, basically the university study of religion. And so that's been a nice relationship with Chautauqua. Chautauqua is more than a university, to be sure, but taking it from studying the religion as a university, and then Chautauqua we have a practicing faith communities, multiple faith communities practicing. And so not only do we have our ILS lectures, the interfaith lectures, where we take maybe a more academic approach, we also have worship, and Chautauqua was just such a rich religion community of praxis and theory, and we always have to eat our own cooking because we are a religious community like others. There's no getting away from the complexities and difficulties of life together.
Mm-hmm. Now, have you published papers along the way?
Yeah, I've enjoyed doing that, and finally got a book out as well a couple years ago, The End of College, Religion and the Transformation of Higher Education in the 20th Century. It was fun to write.
Can you tell me a little bit about the book?
Yeah, so I was wondering when I was a college student, where in the world did these religion departments came from? I grew up a fundamentalist Baptist, and so we would study our Christian faith as fact. We certainly never took a look at it as potential theory and with a perspectival understanding of things. And so when I got to college, I had this big question: where did this academic study of religion come from? And so I went back to study when it came, and really it's 1935, Princeton University, and then spread out from George Thomas there to many other schools. And the big question is, how in the world do we keep our young folks safe religiously and yet give them something in World War II that's worth fighting for? So giving some kind of meaning. So they tried to give meaning back into the university by having it through teaching of religion, but at the end of the day, it did not stick. Religion was not the center, as God and Man at Yale with Buckley told us about Yale. But at the end of the day, we did get the academic study of religion in colleges, and so it was great to watch that, and lots of different stories about how schools adopted that or did not.
Mm-hmm. Now, you did your undergraduate work there in Charlottesville, University of Virginia.
University of Richmond, close by.
Oh, excuse
but
me.
We were big fans of Charlottesville, and we stole UVA's dean to be our president, basically Ed Ayers. So there's always back and forth between UVA and Richmond, and no hard feelings about any of that.
Now, was Richmond a private school or?
Private and Baptist in origin. The great evangelist Charles Stanley came from the University of Richmond, and a lot of the Walton family stories that ended up on television came from there as well. Fascinating place.
So that was an easy move for a Baptist to leave home and go to University of Richmond.
Until you realize you grew up fundamentalist Baptist and you're hanging out with a bunch of moderate Baptists, which we would have called liberals. So it was a very difficult transition, but ultimately really lovely when you found there were people who loved God, the church, Jesus, and the Bible as much as you did, but they had a completely different take on it at the university, to be sure.
Mm-hmm. And then you flourish, presumably, in that culture.
It was wonderful. Of course, we've got lots of interesting scholars coming to visit our campus, many of whom were at Chautauqua this summer. Henry Louis Gates Jr., Skip Gates, Ken Burns, and ultimately I met my PhD advisor at the University of Chicago, Martin Marty, when he came to talk there on campus. So I really appreciate the University of Richmond, to be sure.
Got it. Now, how did you make your way to Chicago?
Well, there was really only one place to study American religion in my mind, and that was the University of Chicago Divinity School. Had great deans like Shaler Matthews and the founder of the University of Chicago, Willie Harper. I was not going to end up making it to anywhere but the University of Chicago at that point. So great to study the academic study of religion at the place that was most known for it, and where Paul Tillich ends up teaching there, 62 to 65 before he died, and just a great history of the study of religion at Chicago.
Okay, and did you live downtown, or where did you live at the time?
South Side, Hyde Park, which is fascinating in of itself. And we had a young law school professor who you'd see at the cafeteria or at the CVS. His wife worked with the dean that I was working with, John Boyer, who wrote the history. And you'd see them around, and he was working on a book. And we finally had him over when he was raising a little money because he was going to run for Congress, and he lost to Bobby Rush by 30 or 40 points. Anyway, I'm speaking of course, Barack Obama. And he was our neighbor a couple of blocks over, and Sasha and Malia, little gals at the time. And it was an amazing place to be, Hyde Park in the 1990s.
And do you still keep in touch with Mr. Obama?
He's, of course, spent time with millions of people since then, but I tell you what was funny is my daughters and son went to school with Sasha and Malia at Sidwell and Friends School in Washington, D.C. So my very first time at a parents' back-to-school meeting, I was sitting across from Michelle Obama, and I told my daughter, Hannah, you should have told me that you had history class with Sasha. And she said, Dad, they're just kids like anyone else. It's not really any of your business. I said, so that's fair. But no, we got to know them is a wrong word to say. They are, of course, in our orbit, and we got to see them at special events. But lovely to be with them. They're amazing people.
Mm-hmm. How about in Washington now? Is it kept up with them?
Well, certainly in Washington, they're just right around the corner from the Cosmos Club, where I spent a lot of time. And they have their place in Chicago, which is around the corner from where we used to be, and they're doing lots of really important work. Of course, the Obama Center just opened in Hyde Park, so really excited to go see that. But they're very very busy folks, but it's always nice to see them around and part of our democratic conversation.
Right. Can you switch gears a little bit? Tell me about the role of religion in the establishment of Chautauqua.
Well, of course, in 1874, you have Vincent and Miller with the successful business, and Vincent as a Methodist bishop. And they were really coming out of a couple of different movements, Lyceum and Sunday School Assembly. I know more about the Sunday School Assembly movement, and meeting together rather with the camp meeting emphasis. And so they had a little bit of concern in the 1870s that their Sunday School Assembly wanted to stay away from what we would call camp meeting enthusiasms. From Cane Ridge Revival to that 1874 period. They wanted to go with something more logical, rational, staid, and clear, far away from the uber emotionalism of camp meeting life. But sure enough, they went across the way to the Baptist camp and saw a guy named Willie Harper, teaching Hebrew, is going to soon be teaching at Yale. And they said, we got to get this guy over here. And William Rainey Harper, who founds the University of Chicago in 1890, helps to boost the educational program at Chautauqua, And sure enough, he was there from probably 1883, 84 or so on up, close until the late 1890s. So deep connection between Chautauqua's founding and the educational movement. Of course, the entire Chautauqua movement, wonderful to read about and to learn about. But certainly faith was at the beginning of that. And long before we had our wonderful denominational houses at the institution, it became a pan-Protestant movement across Sunday schools. And ultimately, Abrahamic faiths, walking mothers in. And then finally, it gets around to Joan Brown Campbell, long past the 1874 mark, where she begins to invite multi-faith in. So it's hard to imagine without the four pillars of Chautauqua institution, which is, of course, religion, recreation, education, and the arts. Religion's a very important pillar there and continues to be. Folks who enjoy the denominational houses have a great experience, and we're always there with worship and the study of religion as well.
How would you break out the population by denomination, faith, or lack thereof?
Well, certainly I've been educated to think of it in terms of fourths. I don't know how actually statistically analysis would be accurate, but think about 1/4 or so folks of the Jewish faith across the spectrum of Jewish faith, to be sure, and then 1/4 sort of avid, practicing, faithful Christians of all kinds of Protestant, Catholic, Orthodox, and other sorts. And then you might have maybe 1/4 of the folks who aren't really tracking that part of Chautauqua, but may appreciate the ambiance of it. And then the final fourth was maybe spiritual but not religious, or as you and I know, they're called the nuns, not the N-U-N-S, but the N-O-N-E-S, as Bob Putnam and others have taught us. So fourths is the best way to think about it. And you have folks of all kind of faith, wonderful members of the Muslim community and the Vedic traditions and great Buddhists who are there. So it's really open to everyone. And you've got within Protestantism, you've got rich black church traditions, as well as my predecessor, Robert Franklin, the former president of Morehouse, had my position, and also a Chicago grad. At any rate, it's a rich panoply of what's happening there. We try to pay attention to that.
Can you tell us a little more about the denominational houses, how they came about?
Well, I'm starting to look more into the history because I'm working at the archives. John Smith's successor there, Emily Carpenter, is an amazing resource. So I'm starting to learn a little bit more about how they came to be. For the last over quarter of a century, my family has enjoyed the Presbyterian house, Disciples house, and of course many of the other houses, Methodist, Catholic, Baptist, UCC, others, and now Quaker. So they come out of the fact that that is where people had a home away from home. And then as groups begin to get large enough, they say, hey, we want a house too. And so we really welcome that. And in the future, we'll have different houses. We have the Lubavitch, Chabad Lubavitch of Orthodox Judaism there, and we're so thrilled to have them. And in the future, all kinds of houses you can't even begin to imagine. But many of them, including the Everett Jewish Life Center, amazing pan-Jewish organization. They have 5 or 6 rooms, I think, as well. So you have a great place for people to fellowship, enjoy Chautauqua, sometimes sleep there, make your home there. And the evolution continues.
Now, does the institution own those properties?
That's a good question. I have to learn about the ownership. They certainly have care of them, but I have to go back and look at that. That's something I have to say I don't know about the ownership, but I should learn.
I'd be interested to hear about that. And what's the most recent house that's been
Well, I wonder if it's Quaker House, and then, of course, the African American Heritage House is amazing. Sean and then Kwame Alexander, other folks, Errol, a gentleman you know, probably had on this show, very influential. Just lost him recently, as we just lost Ross McKenzie, some of the great saints of old. Those are the 2 of the houses. You have Unitarian Universalist House. I'm about to meet them for the first time, not online, and what a rich, I'm sure I've left someone out for which I will, Episcopal House to be sure. I will be learning more and more about each of those, but I'm really there to support them in their work, because whether you're coming to do the Mystic Heart program or Islam 101, meditation and healing and prayer programs, there's almost a sense that there's nothing you can't find at Chautauqua when it comes to faith, and denominational houses are the heartbeat of it.
And we know there's different governance rules for each one of them.
I imagine there are.
And we had last season we had reps from both the Lutheran and the Catholic house here, sitting where you are, and we talked about them in various situations. Now, do you have any major plans for the Department of Religion?
Well, this year we're excited to introduce a few new concepts. We have something new called children's worship, which we're really excited about on Sundays. Remember, Sunday's a free day at Chautauqua. Everyone's welcome. And then, so in addition to Sunday morning worship, in the afternoon we have that, and then a blessing of the animals, and then 7 o'clock Palestine Park, which is a wonderful visual replica and undulating hills of the biblical map come to life. And then we're really excited about the fact that we're having a more innovative program that takes us back to some old Chautauqua traditions of having the chaplain of the week not preach in the amphitheater on Thursdays, but have a more intimate conversation about their faith journey on Thursdays, and then something special on Fridays in the Hall of Philosophy, the HOP as we call it. On Fridays is Christian Ecumenical Communion, and then of course after that in the Friday mornings we have 12:30 Juma prayer in the Hall of Christ with the Muslim community. Everyone's welcome as well, and then the Kabbalah Shabbat at 5 or so. And we're really thrilled about that. And of course, sacred song in the evenings. So those are a couple of little changes there, and the speakers we have are outstanding. 36 speakers there at the Hall of Philosophy, Monday through Thursday, 2 p.m. Interfaith Lecture Series. We have a thrilling start with some amazing folks, and it continues throughout the season.
How will the communion be done then on Fridays? What time of day?
So that's in the morning as well for worship, and it's going to be ecumenical and served by ministers from a variety of different Lutheran as well, Methodist, and our senior pastor Eugene Sutton, who's much beloved. Even my daughters remind me we love Bishop Sutton. He'll be leading the charge there, and Rachel from the local Methodist church helping to lead as well, and a little mini sermon. 3 to 5 minutes. You know, one of the individuals leading one of our mini sermons is going to be the granddaughter of Joan Brown Campbell, and her mom, Jane Campbell, first female mayor of Cleveland, will be doing some introductory work for ILS. So we're thrilled to have a continuation of that. But this year is going to be special. A few new things we try, and a lot of the same old things that I've enjoyed for over a quarter of a century now, just as a regular citizen of Chautauqua, Chautauquan. Proud to be, but this is the first time I'll do it as a staff member.
Now, a key part of your job, as I understand, is finding speakers for the 2 o'clock program.
Exactly.
And some don't realize that's just as robust a job as finding 10:45 in the morning. How do you go about it?
I first begin with paying attention to our overall themes. So we'll say Women of Spirit this week, first week, coming next week. And so if you have icons and instigators, women of spirit, that's the overall theme that Jordan and Deborah and Laura and I all get to work on, although I did not work on last year's themes, obviously. I take that theme and work on a sub-theme for religion. And then I say, who are the finest people around that we can find to come talk? And so one of the first phone calls I made this year, 4 phone calls, checking in with Diana Butler Bass and making sure Bishop Miriam Buddy could also meet as well in that afternoon slot, and then Susanna Heschel of that Heschel family, Abraham Joshua Heschel's daughter at Dartmouth, and Yolanda Pierce, the dean of Vanderbilt Divinity School, formerly Howard Divinity School. I said, we got to get these power player women who are just leaders in their own right. And so I've had a great time pulling them in. So I start with the theme, who's the finest speakers, who really understands that Chautauquans want to be informed, delighted, brought new perspectives, challenged a little bit, but meanwhile they're enjoying a great vacation, a thinking woman's vacation, not a utopia, but a utopia in training. And I try to find the best speakers there, and what a season we have. It's just thrilling.
What time of the year normally do these conversations take place, or commitments? Well,
in general, you do it in the fall, or the winter, and of course this year I had the pleasure of being hired on February 19th and pulling in a lot of the speakers with a lot of the help, again, with Deborah, Jordan, and Laura as colleagues, and the woman who helps to run our shop, Carolyn Snyder, and a lot of advice from Maureen Ravagno, who was a great friend probably to Chautauqua and this institution. So you check in on that. So I've enjoyed for the last 4 months trying to find 36 speakers as quickly as possible, but with high quality.
And how do you get them to Chautauqua?
Well, 3 ways is what I think about. One is you share with them that their work is very important to be shared with Chautauquans. 120,000 or so over the season, 12, 14,000 in a week. That number one, your work will be appreciated. The second is the reputation of Chautauqua, 152, now 153 years, precedes any request I would ever make. So it's not the powers of my persuasion, to be sure. That's the second piece, is that history. And the third is the matching with the themes and their work, their next book to come out. They want to try out new ideas. That's really the way to pull them in. We don't have a lot of money to share with them, but we share hospitality, kindness, welcome. Again, I called up a few old saints of ours, Barbara Brown Taylor, Parker Palmer, and the like, along with obviously Otis Moss, is a great saint of Chautauqua. These folks have advice for who should speak, and Parker Palmer and Barbara Brown Taylor gave me ideas who should speak, and so I followed up to bring in a few of those. So it's nice to use them.
How do you arrange transportation for these people?
Oh my. Well, Carolyn Snyder in our office works with a travel team. The travel team gets them to often Buffalo until we have service one day again here in Jamestown. It'll be lovely. And then we have a wonderful ambassadors program, really lovely folks who can transport them down, and we're really grateful for that program. And they get them here at the gate, and then Tom and Disty and Tom are our hosts for the Hall of Missions, where these speakers stay. And they do a great job of bringing them in there. And we're really grateful for that. And when folks have questions and want to be in dialogue, they join the Chautauqua Dialogues program with Amit, Michaela, and other folks helping to lead that, so you can discuss the difficult topics of the day. So what an experience Chautauqua is, and I hope to do a good job of serving it. But most of my new ideas are going to come in the wonderful structure that already exists.
Were you here when Tom Brokaw spoke?
I don't remember seeing Tom Brokaw. Was it a meaningful...
And do you know what his definition of Chautauqua is?
No.
You can't get there from here.
Well, he talked about the greatest generation. I think I may have seen some video later, but you can't get... Chautauqua is a name meaning you can't get there from here. Yeah. That's great. And what's surprising is, back in the day, they would come the train, and then the bells of the ball, these wonderful ships. And why not by car? Well, cars weren't around in 1874. So
do you normally bring them in day before or 2 days before? Day
before, please. Otherwise, we have unfortunate travel cancellations. Everyone's got a story at Chautauqua about. I think one of them is something like Robbie George and Cornell West coming on their road show and arriving at something like 12 or 2 in the morning. And I think Jordan and company, meet them and take care of them. We'll meet you at 3 a.m. if you get here, but everyone's got a good Chautauqua story about getting here. I just drive up 5 hours, 55 minutes from D.C. when I'm not living here, and I'm living here much of the off season as well. So it's pretty easy to get here for me.
I was supposed to come and shoot a video of a program here, somebody from the clergy, and I missed it. I spent the night on the floor of the Charlotte airport with the connecting flight being weathered out. So I can appreciate your situation and worrying about, say, maybe come 2 days early and I'll buy you lunch.
We do treat a lot of speakers, if they would like, to a day or two before, a day or two after, which is really nice, when we're able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Now, some years ago, they used to lock the gate on Sunday mornings at Chautauqua.
I've heard this.
And it was said you couldn't get out until church was done. What are your plans to encourage attendance?
A couple of things. We like to innovate with music. So our new interim director of sacred music, Sonia Sutton, an amazing pianist, organist, choral director, a real phenom. She's bringing in some really wonderful ideas. So you think about innovation in music, we always look to bring in incredible speakers, and we're trying something new on Thursday and Friday to make sure it's a more intimate feel, which is nice as well. There's no way Chautauqua has ever been able to pretend it's not a part of the larger machinations and decline or increase in different things. Certainly back in the day they had concerns. I remember Bishop Vincent, one of the two co-founders, had to stop people getting too enthusiastic from the stage in terms of religion, and we might want that. But I tell folks as well, we not just encourage the worship part of faith, but what we have is people doing different parts like mystic heart and meditation and singing sacred song. I've even had a dream of bringing something we call wine and hymns, or beer and hymns, where you get together late at night and you sing hymns with each other. Who knows, these innovative ideas may catch on, but you look for each generation's enthusiasm. When I think about people saying, oh, not as many people attend worship as used to attend, I think about folks in the 1870s, late 1870s, complaining, wondering if that next generation is ever going to appreciate what we in the 1840s appreciated about our faith. And each generation can tend to think that next generation is not going to come along. Sometimes they come along in their own way, but we want to provide them excitement and interest. And other times, I remember what Parker Palmer wrote about in one of his books. He said he was talking to some teachers in a classroom, and he said, these students just aren't as enlivened and engaged. And he said, hold a second, look outside when the bell breaks loose. They're socializing and excited. So the question is, what kind of stuff do we present, and what kind of opportunities? And I think Chautauqua has the chance to produce ever more excellence and excitement and engagement in the religion area as well. And we follow the lead of the people who are consumers of it, but we also present things whether people consume them or not, as we care about religious communities, whether people are jumping out of their seats like 1850s camp meetings or not.
Mm-hmm. Now, you brought a book to the table here. Let's find out what's going on here.
Well, New Faith for Old is the autobiography of Shaler Matthews, which I love. Shaler Matthews was my predecessor in 1912 to 1933, really. And he was the Divinity School Dean at the University of Chicago. And Shaler Matthews was brought in by Willie Harper, again, one of the early leaders of Chautauqua, and president and founder of the University of Chicago with John Rockefeller. But this is a beautiful New Faith for Old. Shaler Matthews became really the prophet of modernism, fighting against, to put it simply, fundamentalism. Mm-hmm. And I think in many ways he felt that by the time he left in 1933, neo-orthodoxy had won the day, a little bit of a turn back toward original Orthodox traditional faith, and he had been part of the movement for modernism, which many people who were fundamentalists thought of as secularism. Mm-hmm. But what a fascinating autobiography. And he talks about Willie Harper and Chautauqua and what it meant to him. And then finally, when he left Chautauqua after 21 years, that would certainly be my goal. Very difficult to get. He had a longer runway at his start than that. But he writes in here about his own personal faith and about the meaningful faith at Chautauqua. It's really a stellar read. And he finally says why he stepped down. And it was somewhere between Chautauqua experiencing receivership, that is, say, financial exigency and difficulties, and the new turn towards neo-orthodoxy. He felt it was not exactly his time anymore. But we have a wonderful frieze relief, almost bust in the Hall of Missions of Shaler Matthews. He's always been one of my heroes for his tempered, thoughtful stance with the importance of faith, and for him following the Christian faith, as I do, a follower of Jesus. And a lover of Scripture as well. So what a great book, and lots of fun.
Well, here's your challenge. Write a matching text.
Yeah.
Now that you've got one book on.
Add to my book list. I love that.
That's right.
A Newer Faith for Older Faith. I have to title it in a fun way. Thanks
right.
for asking about Shaler. What a guy.
That's a great point. We are out of time, and I sure hope you'll come back and let us talk a little further.
It would be a treat.
After you've seen a little more of the institution.
Thanks for your good work. It's great to be back to Chautauqua and happy to serve.
Great. Thank you so very much. See you now.
Thank you.